Welcome to Personal Injury Law Unwrapped with Randy Ferguson.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to episode 3 of Personal Injury Law Unwrapped with Randy Ferguson. I'm Matt Skye. Randy is a dedicated attorney with over 30 years of experience in personal injury and criminal law. Known for his involvement in multi-million-dollar recoveries for his clients, he has also served for over 28 years as a magistrate in Madison County, Alabama. Randy, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me today.
So please explain, if you can, what premises liability entails and who might be liable in cases involving injuries on someone else's property.
Well, premises liability is basically someone being injured on the premises, and that is often malls, grocery stores, people tripping on sidewalks that are broken, people getting hurt in your yard. It's all kinds of trip and falls, and it can be other things, but it's mainly trip and falls, slip and falls, stepping in holes, those type of things.
Is there any one type of injury you see most often in your practice?
Falling in grocery stores. It's people fall in grocery stores constantly, and it's because there's a lot of traffic, and you have children drinking things, you have employees taking out items that have ice on them, that they're putting in the frozen area or in the produce area. People fall constantly.
So when we talk about premise injuries, how do they differ from other types of injury cases?
Well, I think most people automatically think with a premise case that if you get hurt on someone's property, they're at fault. If you get in a car accident, somebody hits you from behind, almost always it's their fault. But when you go to a grocery store, they're not a guarantor of your safety. They're not there to keep you safe. When you go to a grocery store, you're what's called an invitee, and that is you're invited in because you're going to give a monetary benefit to that grocery store. You're there to buy stuff. Now, if you go in not to buy anything, just to go in there, that's different. You'd be a licensee. But in a grocery store, people walk in, and if they slip on something, they're like, okay, I fell, they're at fault. That's not the law. The law is clear, is there's different ways of proving it, but if you step on a piece of ice, and let's say you go in one of the major stores, let's say a Walmart, if you step on a piece of ice, they're not at fault unless they dropped the ice there, or they knew the ice was there, or the ice had been there long enough for them to find it. And so the question is, well, what's long enough to find it? It depends on the item. A lot of people say 20 minutes, a lot of people say 30 minutes. It depends on the time of year, how busy it is in the store. Is it Christmas time and there's people everywhere? And so just because you fell does not mean you're going to recover. Most grocery stores deny cases. Just a majority of the time they deny your case and say it's not their fault.
Is there a certain time frame in terms of just neglecting finding something? Like how do you delineate between seeing something and not doing anything versus a grocery store or establishment not even knowing that something potentially dangerous is in their store?
Yeah, there's not a magic number. And in Alabama, I've heard people say, well, 20 minutes is reasonable, 30 minutes is reasonable. It all depends on the store. If you go into a restroom, let's say at a Walmart or something like that, oftentimes you'll see a board on the door and it'll say cleaned bathroom at this time. And it'll put the time on there. And the reason they do that is if you fall in the bathroom, they can say, we were in there 5 minutes ago and there was nothing on the floor. And so Walmart and a lot of the grocery stores are really good at going in there looking for water, looking for problems, and then writing it down. Because 10 minutes, you can't go check the restrooms every 10 minutes. And you can't follow every person around in the grocery store with a mop. So, if you go into the produce section and there's a child in a cart with their parent and they spill their drink, Walmart can't follow those people around and all the grocery store employees. It'd be crazy to try to do that. So you've got to determine what's reasonable. If you go to a store, let's say a toy store, at Christmas, there's a lot of kids and there's a lot of toys being thrown around and moved. So it's probably going to be on the store's best interest to walk those aisles a little bit more often because kids throw stuff in the floor and drop stuff and spill stuff. Where, in a clothing store for adults, you may not have to check it as often because you don't have a bunch of kids running around and playing. So it all depends on the store. Same thing with restaurants. It all depends on, if you go to one of these kids' pizza places, and they're running around with pizza and drinks and stuff, you probably want to walk around a little bit more than if you're at a nice, fine restaurant for adults, because there's going to be more things spilled. It's that simple.
What are the primary responsibilities of owners or managers for maintaining a safe premise? And are there certain assumptions that some environments are riskier than others?
There's really things. There's three things. Invitees are someone you invite to your business because you're going to get a financial benefit, or they're at least looking for groceries, certain things that you may or may not have. Two would be a licensee. With an invitee, you have a duty to keep the premises safe, okay? That's the highest duty because you're getting money out of it. You need to make sure it's safe. Two is a licensee, and that's a person who, if you know there's something there, you have a duty to notify them. There's a hole over there, you need to watch out. Trespassers really have no right. You can't just intentionally harm them. If there is a hole there, technically you don't have to tell them, but you can't push them in it. You have to, you can't intentionally injure. So if somebody's trespassing on your land, you can't intentionally, hurt them. But a licensee, if you know it's there, you got to tell them. With an invitee, you better make sure that you have covered it up and where they can't get hurt, or you're going to be liable. And those are the three in Alabama, and pretty much everywhere in the country. Those are the three different types of people you can have at your business: trespassers, invitee, and licensees.
We hear of this term, duty of care. Can you elaborate on that for us a bit more?
It's kind of the same thing. As they have a duty of care to the person that comes in the store. So if it's raining, and you know it's raining, and people are bringing in a lot of water, you have a duty of care to, common sense tells you need to put down some type of rugs. And you need to move those rugs as soon as they get too wet, because when they get too wet, it's just as the same as not even having a rug there. So you have a duty to those people to make sure, based on the circumstances, that it's safe. And so in any grocery store, restaurant, you have a duty to make sure the floors are clean, make sure if you see something there that you clean it up. You put something down, a wet floor sign, if you have to run and get a mop. You have a duty of care to use common sense to make sure that you've kept that place safe to the people that are in there looking at things to buy.
Is there a duty of care when it comes to private property, when someone's visiting a friend's house or something of that nature? Again,
you can't intentionally hurt them. If they're invited, it's different. You're not there they're not going to make money off you. So you need to know if they're going to be on your premises, if there's something there that could be dangerous, you have a duty to let them know. And again, I've got cases where people get beat up at somebody's house on their premises. And again, that's different because it's not a negligent act if somebody intentionally does a harm to you. So it's like going to a grocery store. If somebody intentionally attacks you, it's not the grocery store's fault. And so you're not going to recover. And it's the same thing at someone's house. If you know it's dangerous, and you know that people are coming into your yard that are, not trespassers, you have a duty to make sure that it's safe. Posting signs.
Right. And do you advise most people to, I guess, have extra signs in that way? Just like more is better?
It depends on what you got. If you have a dangerous dog, you better have signs. We've had numerous people killed recently in North Alabama being attacked by dogs and packs of dogs. And so if you have a dog that you know is dangerous, German Shepherds, Pit Bulls, there's a list of the ones they say are dangerous. You need to make sure it's posted. No trespassing. You better make sure the dogs are up because kids will wander into your yard and things. And so, it's really important to post those things, but you got to make sure that it's safe. That if someone were to wander onto your land by accident, that they're not going to be attacked by a dog.
So when someone is injured on another person's property, what are the first steps they should take to protect their health and their legal rights for that matter?
Well, the first thing, of course, is get medical treatment. If you get injured, get medical treatment, do a police report if you're hurt, so they can come out and do an incident report on it, notify, the authorities. If you're attacked by a dog, notify the police, and also they'll notify and they'll come out and take the dog normally and put it up for a number of days. But if normally you're just going to get that treatment, get in touch with the insurance company. If the person has insurance on their home, talk to your attorney before you talk to their insurance. Again, they'll try to deny it. The homeowner's insurance will try to deny the claim. Do not talk to the insurance company without an attorney.
And let's dive a little bit into documenting the scene. We've talked about scene documentation in auto accidents and in other scenarios. How do you do that when you're on either commercial or personal property?
Well, I'll tell you what's tough is when you go in a grocery store, a lot of people fall on clear items. I've probably had 500 to 1,000 people who have slipped in a grocery store and they say, well, I slipped on something. I don't know what it was. You've got major problems when that's the issue. There'll be shampoos. There'll be different kinds of things that are spilled, oils in the floor. And you've got to show, again, that it was there long enough and that there was actually something there. If you slip in a little bit of water, and when they get there and they look at you and everything, they don't see anything to clean up. Again, it's hard to prove that they're liable if there's nothing there, but there was some liquid on your pants and it's dried now, or it was on your shoes and they can't find it. So if there's anything in the floor, and it's hard to get people to do this, because if you fall and hurt your knee or something, the last thing you're thinking about is, I need to take a picture of this stuff. Because they're going to bring over the manager or some employees, and they're going to help you, ask you if you need an ambulance. Sometimes they'll just say nothing, or they'll act like they don't even see you on the ground. You want an incident report done. Now, understand, they'll do an incident report if they have, if it's a bigger one of the stores that has forms to do, but they're not going to give you a copy of it. Rarely will any of them give you a copy of the report. Your attorney will get it, but you're not going to get it. And so make sure you do the report. If there's something on the ground, get a picture of it. I've had so many people slip on grapes in the produce section. And oftentimes when you take a picture of that grape, you can see track marks through it. When you take a picture, it's like a grocery cart's went through it and there's dirt in it. That's a way of proving it's been there a while. If it's got tracks all over and it's smashed all over the floor and spread on the floor, it's easy to say, hey, it was there long enough for you to discover it. There's usually a bunch of people working in the produce section, and if that grape's all over the ground and there's dirt on it and stuff, it's been there long enough to find, and that's how you prove your case. Anything that shows tracks through it, sometimes you'll step on like something plastic. It's hard to prove how long that plastic was there. They have cameras in the stores. Rarely do they pick up anything. They don't have cameras going down every aisle, all the time. So don't expect them to help you. They're not going to say, oh, we got that where you fell on video and it was our fault. They're not going to do that. Plus, they're going to erase that video as quick as they can oftentimes. So just be sure that if you fall, if you're capable or you have somebody with you, take pictures. And understand this, the number one cause of falls besides water, which is on the floor, is flip-flops. I probably have half of my clients that fall are wearing shoes that have no backing to them. And right. So flip-flops, sandals, those kind of things, they will cause you to fall by catching your foot. Understand, if you're wearing either one of those, and if it's like water or something, they're going to deny your claim, because people fall walking down the street with flip-flops and sandals on all the time.
So it's really hard to have liability when you wear those types of shoes.
It is. Tennis shoes, you're safe with tennis shoes. You got to watch out for cowboy boots are slippery, certain other ones. And so, if you're wearing something that doesn't have a back to it, it's just one of those things. That's the first thing they notice is what kind of shoes were you wearing. And if you get hurt, they're going to call you and they're going to say, tell me what happened. And one of the first questions after that is, what kind of shoes do you have on? Because they hope you're wearing one of those types of shoes. And it's just, it's hard to win those cases. I mean, I've had some really, really big cases where people have fallen in stores and, tripped on the sidewalks that are out and stuff. But flip-flops and sandals, automatically, that's the first thing I ask too, because that's an issue, major issue.
Can we speak to the surveillance side a little bit? You're mentioning that stores will sometimes delete footage. Is that even something they're legally allowed to do?
There's no law on it. You even have to have cameras. And we have this problem a lot with car accidents. Above the red lights, there's a lot of cameras in our city. Well, half those cameras don't work. They're not even hooked up. They are to slow people down and to make you think they're videotaping you, but a lot of them don't work. We've checked to get them, and none of them, were working when we're trying to get them. So just because you have a video cameras in your store does not mean it's going to catch it. Understand, like some stores, they have the bubbles in the ceiling that are cameras. The problem is they only have one camera that works at a time. So if they got 10 different places in the store they're videotaping you, you got a 1/10 of a chance that it's going to actually show you. Now, will it show something on the floor? These cameras are not the best. So if there's water on the floor, the cameras ain't going to show that. You're not going to see water on the floor. You might see in that area, you see a child in the buggy spill their drink when they're walking down it or something, which will give you a time frame of when it was done. But in general, you're not going to get any help from their video cameras. And understand, most places erase those cameras 7 to 30 days, depending on the company. And so if you do get hurt, you get in touch with an attorney, automatically send a letter to the restaurant or wherever you fell saying, I want you to retain a copy of the camera footage, because if you do that and then they erase it in front of a jury, it looks really bad if they erase it. And so you can go after them for destroying the evidence, and a jury will look at it and say, well, if it helped you, you wouldn't have destroyed it, but since it didn't help you, that's why the store destroyed it. So, but don't rely on them. They're never going to help you. They're not out to help you. And so try to videotape everything yourself.
And how do you prove that you made that request? Should you record yourself when doing that?
You're going to send a letter or certified mail to the store manager of where you got injured.
And what about the injury reports? How often is that withheld or hard to obtain?
Some of the really big ones, they never give you the report. They do the report, and that's an internal document. They don't have to give it to you. I mean, the law doesn't require them to give it to you. Some places will give it to you. Some of the smaller stores and stuff, they don't know any better, but they don't have to do it. And so what happens is when we file suit or when we talk to the insurance adjusters, that we get a copy of that report. And again, remember that report, again, is just what people are saying. It's basically hearsay too. But it is, if you give them a statement of what happened, it's in there and it shows at the scene you told them exactly what happened. Now, sometimes that's good, but sometimes it's not. If you tell them I fell, but I don't know on what, you just lost your case because you can't prove it. And so you got to be careful what you say in those reports, because I'll tell you, they'll come over there with a mop while they're checking on you, mop it up, and it's gone a lot of times. If it's not a hard object like, a piece of plastic, sometimes you'll have the little tags that tell the price of items fall off the shelf, and people slip on those. The problem is if you slip on those, it's hard to prove when did that thing fall off there. And because it's plastic, it doesn't melt like ice or something. So, and then sometimes you also have like coolers that leak. That's easier to prove. You got water running out of a cooler. That's easier to document and get a picture of.
So as we wrap up, do you have any sort of all-encompassing advice for people with premises liability claims, how they can navigate the process and then seek compensation for their injuries? Well,
they're hard cases. They're one of the harder cases to win, other than probably medical malpractice type things. They're hard to win because a lot of times the evidence is just water or something that you can't prove. If you don't have any witnesses, again, it's one of those things, it's your word against theirs. If there's no shampoo all over the floor, if there's shampoo that's spilled over here on the shelf and it runs across the floor, you get a picture of it and that'll help you because it'll show it had been there doing it for a while. But the best thing you can do is get the evidence. If there are witnesses, again, as any accident, get their name and number and get that to your attorney, because a witness will help you if they really saw something on the ground or something. And then get that treatment, finish the treatment, and then let your attorney take care of it from there.
Great point to wrap up on. Everybody, thank you so much for listening. This has been Personal Injury Law Unwrapped with Randy Ferguson. For more information or to connect with Randy, visit fergusonferguson.com or find him on social media. Randy, thanks for your time today.
All right. Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.